Jazakallah, Jazakallah. For recitation of Holy Quran, I invite Brother Amin Jafri. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا إنا خلقنا الإنسان من نطفة أمشاج نبتليه فجعلناه سميعا بصيرا إنا هديناه سبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا إنا أعتدنا للكافرين سلاسل وأغلالا وسعيرا إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كفورا عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا يؤفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فواقهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا ويطاف عليهم بآنية من فضة وأكواب كانت قوارير من فضة قدروها تقديرا ويسقون فيها كأسا كان مزاجها زنجبيلا عينا فيها تسمى سلسبيلا ويطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون إذا رأيتهم حسبتهم لؤلؤا منثورا وإذا رأيت ثم رأيت نعيما وملكا كبيرا عاليهم ثياب سندس خضر واستبرق وحلوا أساور من فضة وسقاهم ربهم شرابا طهورا إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا واذكر اسم ربك بكرة وأصيلا ومن الليل فاسجد له وسبحه ليلا طويلا صدق الله العلي العظيم صدق سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين صلوات
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Jazakallah, Brother Amin. One more salawat for Brother Amin ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. سو سلام مرثیے کے لیے میں درخواست کرتا ہوں جناب ہاشم رضا صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور مولا کی بارگاہ میں سو سلام مرثیہ پیش کریں. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
بار دیگر نعرہ صلوات. حشر تلک مجلس عزا بڑھتا ہی جائے گا کا سلسلہ کس طرح سے مٹائے گا اس کو یزید وقت کس طرح سے مٹائے گا اس کو یزید وقت ہر ذہن میں حسین ہے ہر دل میں کربلا قائم رہے. محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. مظہر ہے دو جہان میں خدائے صفات کا بستر دیا نبی نے تو اللہ نے رضا بستر دیا نبی نے تو اللہ نے رضا انعام یہ ملا ہے فقط ایک رات کا مولا میرا امام ہے محمد علیہ محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد و علی محمد بار دیگر نعرہ صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد و علی محمد فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ کر شاد مومن ہو رہے ہیں ان کی شہرت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ ہے عبادت کربلا کا ذکر اور فرش روشنی حاصل کرو تم یہ ہدایت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت پرچم عباس کے ساتھ ایک مل جائے ثمر کچھ اثر ہو جائے گر ان کی شجاعت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ کر پالیا عباس نے پانی پہ قبضہ جس گھڑی بھاگے سارے اشقیاء غازی کی ہیبت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ دیکھ نام حیدر حق نے آلہ ہے زمان میں کر دیا مسکراتے ہیں ملک ان کی سعادت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ کر ایک پہر میں خلد کا رستہ وہ کیسے پا گیا میں حیرت ہے زمانہ اور کی قسمت دیکھ کر فاطمہ کے لال کا رتبہ و عظمت دیکھ کر شاد مومن ہو رہے ہیں ان کی شہرت فاتحہ. بار دیگر نعرہ صلوات.
صلی اللہ محمد و علی محمد.
جب اربعین کو آئے آرام قتل گاہ، تاریک آسمان و زمین تنگاہ، پنہا تھا شکل کعبہ لباس سیاہ، گیسو کھلے تھے سوگے شہیداں کے آپ، گیسو کھلے تھے سوگے شہید الہ، روئیں جو شہزادیاں منہ ڈانپ ڈانپ کے، لاش حسین رہ گئی کانپ، لاش حسین رہ گئی بس کانپ کانپ، یوں خاک پر پڑا تھا مراقبۃ کا، آزا جدا تھے لاشوں کے اور دست پا جدا، بے گور و بے کفن تھے شہیدان کربلا، کوئی کسی کی لاش پہ جو بے کسی نہ تھا، کوئی کسی کی لاش پہ جو بے کسی نہ تھا، افتادہ خاک پر تھا سلیمان کربلا، پر جبریل کا تھا نادامان کربلا، پر جبریل کا تھا نادامان کربلا، یوں پہلوئے حسین میں تھا لاشائے صغیر، باچھوں میں دودھ لب پہ انگوٹھا گلے میں تھی، وقت قضا ملا تھا جو سونا بشیر، کھولے ہوئے دہن تھا وہ رشک مائے منی، کھولے ہوئے دہن تھا وہ رشک مائے، ننھا سا کرتا تن میں لہو سے بھرا ہوا، ایک ہاتھ تھا حسین کا اس پر دھرا، ایک ہاتھ تھا حسین کا اس پر دھرا ہوا، جس دم یہ حال گنجے شہیداں نظر پڑا، بانوں نے لاشائے علی اصغر اٹھا، چادر سے پوچھا سوکھا ہوا دودھ پانچوں کا، مردے کے منہ کے بوسے لیے اور یہ کہا، مردے کے منہ کے بوسے لیے اور یہ کہا، تم سے بچھڑ کے میں رہی فریاد و آہ ہمیں، اصغر کا آرڈر تو نہیں قتل گاہ، اصغر کا آرڈر تو نہیں قتل گاہ ہمیں، عابد پہ در کی لاش پہ ہونے لگے، سوچا آبا سے باپ کے زخموں سے سب غبار، بولے کہ کیا ہوا لاشائے اصغر سے ہم کنار، اصغر کو پیار کر چکے فرماؤ مجھ کو پیار، اصغر کو پیار کر چکے فرماؤ مجھ، فرماؤ تو غلام تمہارا نہیں ہوں میں، پیارے یہ دونوں بیٹے ہیں پیارا نہیں ہوں، پیارے یہ دونوں بیٹے ہیں پیارا نہیں ہوں، یہاں قصد دفن شاہ کا سجاد نے کیا، زخموں سے پہلے نیزہ پیکاں کیے جدا، قدرے لگے جو قبر قبر شہنشاہ کربلا ایک لوح نکلی جس پہ یہ مضمون تھا خدا ایک لوح نکلی جس پہ یہ مضمون تھا خدا زہرا کے گیسوؤں پا پڑی کی خاک ہے ابن ابو تراب کی یہ قبر پاک ابن ابو تراب کی یہ قبر پاک فارغ پہ در کے دفن سے سجاد جاب ہوا اکبر کا لاشا پہلو شابر میں پانی چھڑا کے قبر پہ رو رو کے یہ کہا تیسی ہو آفری تمہیں اے بھائی مرحبا تیسی ہو آفری اے بھائی مرحبا مقتل میں بدلے فاطمہ زہرا کے لال کے تم نوجوان مر گئے 18 سال تم نوجوان مر گئے 18 سال اصغر کا لاشا پائیں تھی بابا کے پیر رکھا رو کر کہا بھائی میرے تجھ پر میں فدا آیا جو تیر جانب فرزند مرتضی اپنے گلے پہ روک لیا تم نے واہ اپنے گلے پہ روک لیا تم نے واہ اللہ رشک باپ کا ماں سے جدا ہوئے بابا پہ 6 مہینے کے سین میں فدا بابا پہ 6 مہینے کے سین میں فدا ہوئے جب 40 کو آئے حرام قتل گاہ میں محمد علیہ محمد صلوات
محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight is the first in this series of 5 majalis in which we commemorate the 40th day after the shahadat of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, known as Arba'in. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. The sponsors for tonight's program are the following families: Mr. Mustafa and Mrs. Zaynab Ali, as well as Syed Mehdi and Simi Kazmi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our a'mal in these holy days and nights of Arba'in. We remember their marhumeen, your marhumeen, and the marhumeen of all mu'mineen and mu'minat, including the following marhumeen: Sherbano Abdul Hussein Kanani, Amina Ghulam Hussein Pirani, Zaynab Hassan Ali, Haji Hassan Ali, Sayyid Tahzibul Hassan Abidi Ibn Yaqub Hussein Abidi, Sayyid Ahmad Hassan Kazmi Ibn Akhtar Hassan Abidi, Kaniz Sabira Binte Akhtar Hussein Rizvi, and Marhum Peter. We also remember the marhumeen who just passed in, I'm sure you've heard the news, a bus accident from Pakistan to Iraq for Arba'in. There were 28 shuhada. We remember their souls with a Suratul Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them all in the deepest ranks of paradise, insha'Allah ta'ala. In these holy days and nights of Arba'in, we remember those who are in need of dua for their health, safety, and protection. Our very own in the community, Sayyid Mehdi Shah, as well as Khalisiya. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restore their health. Please recite with me verse number 62 of Surah An-Naml together 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Mu'mineen, just a few announcements before we proceed with tonight's majlis. Inshallah, our Arba'een series is going to continue, as I mentioned, for these next 5 nights. Just a few things to keep in mind. Sunday is the day of Arba'een. Sunday will be a day majlis with Salat al-Dhuhrain. Tomorrow's majlis, we are going to be commemorating the shahadat of our 8th holy Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wa salam. Salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The tabut will be taken out in tomorrow night's majlis. We look forward to your presence. Mu'mineen, I was asked about registration for the Arba'een blood drive. As you know, we did one blood drive earlier in Muharram and we do a second one in Arba'een. But mashallah, all of our appointments have filled up. This community and the community at large has really responded. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't donate. There's still a blood shortage in this country. Find your local blood bank, make an appointment. We are still looking for blood donations. But for the Masjid blood drive that's going to take place this Saturday, the appointments are filled. If you have an appointment, it will be honored. If you are looking to walk in, I recommend that you call for an appointment at your local blood drive. We will, inshallah, organize another blood drive in the near future given this demand. The Al-Mahdi workshops for Arba'een are going to take place Friday and Saturday. This is for kids under the age of 11. It goes as young as toddlers with their moms as well. Friday, Saturday, 8:45, so meaning after Salat, until the end of the lecture. Those with special needs, there is a workshop for you on Saturday as well. Registration is required. You can see me at the desk or you can speak with Brother Mazhar Ali Dina for more information. Our upcoming programs for our viewers here and online. Mark your calendars for the following. We have upcoming programs beginning of September, middle of September, and end of September. Beginning of September, September 1st to the 3rd, we will be commemorating the wafat of none other than our Holy Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala. As well as Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wa salam. Salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This will be recited by Sayyid Suleiman Abidi. So this is beginning of September. Middle of September, which is the 14th and the 15th, Mizan Institute will be holding a workshop here at Masjid-e-Ali titled The Hour, Resurrection Day Part 1. This is based on the works of Allama Tabatabai, taught by Sheikh Amin Rastani. For those who joined us in the last workshop on death, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of the attendees, phenomenal workshop, something that you should not miss. Sheikh Rastani is going center to center. He's coming here the 14th and the 15th. You can register at mizaninstitute.org/Masjid-e-Ali, or you can see me for more information. End of September for the upcoming. So we did beginning, middle, now end of September. September 21st, in honor of the wiladat of our Holy Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We will be hosting Prophet Day, which is titled The Legacy of the Prophet. We have 4 speakers, Maulana Sayyid Rizvi, Imam Jawad Ahmad, Chaplain Kaisar Aslam, as well as our keynote speaker, Maulana Sayyid Mustafa Qazwini. We look forward to your participation. Mark your calendars for the 21st, inshallah. Mu'mineen, we are honored to have amongst us our guest scholar, Sayyid Bilal Rizvi, for this Arba'een series. He is a well-known Islamic lecturer, reciting nationally and internationally on a variety of topics, including contemporary challenges, history and social issues, and theology. He began his religious training in the United States and then the Islamic Seminary of Najaf under the guidance of and instruction of distinguished scholars in the field. His interests are Arabic literature, Islamic philosophy, theology, hadith studies, as well as Islamic spirituality. He is no stranger to our center. We've had him before, we've benefited from him before, and we're inshallah going to benefit from him this weekend and in the future. Mu'mineen, help me welcome our respected guest scholar, Sayyid Bilal Rizvi, to recite tonight's Arba'een Majlis with a nice and loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والسولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الردوية والجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد، فهذا من خطبة سيدتنا ومولاتنا أقيلة بني هاشم زينب الكبرى التي خطبها أمام الظالم يزيد بن معاوية، فقالت: الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على محمد وآله أجمعين. صدق الله حيث يقول: ثم كان عاقبة الذين أساءوا السوء كذبوا بآيات الله وكانوا بها يستهزئون. أذننت يا يزيد حيث أخذت علينا أقطار الأرض وآفاق السماء، فأصبحنا نساق كما تساق الإماء. أن بنا على الله هوانا وبك عليه كراما، وأن ذلك لعدم خطرك عنده، فشمخت بأنفك ونظرت في إتفك جدلا مسرورا، حين رأيت الدنيا لك مستوسقا والأمور متسقا، وحين صفى لك ملكنا وسلطاننا، فمهلا مهلا أنسيت قول الله تعالى: ولا يحسبن الذين كفروا أنما نملي لهم خير لأنفسهم، إنما نملي لهم ليزدادوا إثما ولهم عذاب مهين. أمن العدل يا ابن الطلقاء تخديرك إماءك ونساءك، وسوقك بنات رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله سبايا، قد هتكت ستورهن وأبديت وجوههن، وتحدو بهن الأعداء من بلد إلى بلد، ويستشرفهن أهل المنازل والمناهل، ويتصفه وجوههن البعيد والقريب والدني والشريف، ليس معهن من رجالهن ولي ولا من حماتهن حميه، وكيف ترتجى مراق من لفد فوه أكباد الأسكياء ونبت لحمه بدماء الشهداء. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Fatimatu Zahra in particular, a second salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. To give our condolences to the master of our time as we approach the Arba'een of his grandfather, a louder salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The sermon of Sayyida Zaynab, salamullahi alayha, delivered in the court of Yazid in Damascus, is indeed one of the most powerful sermons delivered in the history of Islam. It's a sermon which demonstrates the courage and valor of this lady, her eloquence, her mastery of the Arabic language, her knowledge of history, her understanding of the events which befell her, her foresight into the future, as well as her profound and in-depth understanding of the Holy Quran. You know, when we examine the contents of this sermon, we find that there are 6 different verses of the Holy Quran that Sayyida Zaynab, she quotes from. And on top of that, throughout her speech, there are a number of different concepts, terms, and phrases from the Quran that are embedded throughout her speech. You know, when we give a lecture and we sit on this pulpit, it requires preparation to give a lecture. But when Sayyida Zaynab delivers a sermon embedded with this many different ayat of the Quran in the manner that she did, it goes to demonstrate the status and the profound relationship which Sayyida Zaynab had with the Quran. And indeed, the subject of analysis tonight is to examine the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab in the context of the verses that she quotes within this sermon. But before we come to the crux of this analysis, it's important for you and I to understand the historical significance and the power of this sermon. And we can do this, number one, by understanding Arabian society at a wider level, and number two, by understanding that historical context of what it meant for her to give this sermon in front of Banu Umayyah and the Caliph of Banu Umayyah. Now, at the first level, when it comes to understanding the historical significance of the sermon, you and I need to acknowledge that Arabian society is different from the society that we live in today from a number of different aspects. You know, one of those aspects in the way the Arabian society differed from the world today is that the world today is primarily a literary world. What this means is that if an individual wants to be educated and informed, it is necessary that they are able to read and write. You know, our source of knowledge, which is authoritative, is something which is written down. For my lecture to have value, the historical facts that I mention must be mentioned within a book of history, and the narrations which I quote must be mentioned within a book of hadith. But you find that Arabian society was different from this. In today's world, authority comes from something being written down. But within Arabian society, that which had authority was something which was spoken. And that which came in writing was a support for something which was spoken. That's why the Arabs, they developed different forms of speech. For example, they developed their poetry. You know, when I say the word poetry, in your mind, the first thing that comes is writing. But in the mind of the Arab at that time, poetry was something which was spoken. Another area of speech which the Arabs developed was rhymed prose called saja. But when you look at all of those different areas, you find one thing which the Arabs, they excelled in was the art of khitaba or khataba called oratory. Now, without a doubt, oratory as an art form, it didn't begin with the Arabs. When you look at somebody like Aristotle and his rhetoric, Aristotle mentions Aristotelis. He mentions that oratory is of different types. But you find within the culture of the Arabs, For whatever reason, oratory gains such an important position that if you wanted to convince someone, or if you wanted to spread any sort of message, you find that the means to do so was through the sermon, what is called a khutbah in the Arabic language. Oftentimes, we hear that Banu Umayyah would curse Amir al-Mu'mineen at Salatul Jummah within the sermon of Salatul Jummah. Now, the reason you find that they do this is because the sermon of Salatul Jum'ah and other sermons, they were viewed as that medium through which a message could be spread. And that's why when we look at the Anbiya, we look at Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt, you find that at one level, this art of oratory and speech was something which was amongst them. For example, the narrations mention that Nabi Shu'aib was Khatibul Anbiya, that he was the orator of the prophets. When you look at Rasulullah, there's a number of narrations where Rasulullah, he takes pride in his speech. For example, in one narration, he says, "U'titu jawami al-kalim," that I have been given a word which is jami', which is substantive. Other individuals, they may speak for hours and hours, but there's no substance over there. But what Rasulullah was given is that he was given a speech that even if it is short, it is full of substance. In another narration, Rasulullah, he says, "Ana afsahu man nataka bi lughat ad-dad," that I am the most eloquent who spoke the language which had the letter ad-dad. The sound of the letter dad is a sound which is unique to the Arabic language. So one of the names of the Arabic language is that it is the language with this sound. So Rasulullah in this narration, he says that I am the most eloquent. Now when you continue down the line and you go to Amir al-Mu'mineen, the eloquence of Amir al-Mu'mineen is so well known that it doesn't need to be spoken about. But just as a means of a quick example, there was a very famous writer by the name of Ahmad al-Katib or Abdul Hamid al-Katib. And they asked this Abdul Hamid al-Katib that how was it that you became such an eloquent writer? He says, "Hafidtu sab'ina khutbatan min khutabi Ali ibn Abi Talib." My secret is that I memorized 70 sermons of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And after I memorized 70 sermons of Ali ibn Abi Talib, I would sow knowledge together and I would sow knowledge together. And as you continue down this line, you find amongst those individuals who delivered a sermon of eloquence was Sayyida Zaynab. The point that I'm making is that for somebody to be eloquent in today's world, or for somebody to give a speech which is remembered in today's world is something else. And for somebody to give a speech like Sayyida Zaynab gave and for it to be remembered in a society which praised oratory is something else. So you find this is the first point of analysis. The second point of analysis, when we frame this sermon historically, is that we need to understand that in front of whom did Sayyida Zaynab give this sermon? That she gave this sermon in front of Yazid. Here the question to ask is that how long have Banu Umayyah had authority in Syria, in Damascus? The authority of Banu Umayyah in Damascus is something which was continuing for over 40 years. In the reign of Abu Bakr, he sent 4 individuals to begin the process of the conquest of Sham. And when I say Sham, I mean the Levant in the English language, which includes Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon. So for example, he sends Amr ibn al-As to Palestine. And he sends Surahbil ibn Hassana to Palestine/Jordan. He sends Abu Ubaidah al-Jarrah for this conquest. And you find that the 4th individual he sends is Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan. Over here, it is not Yazid ibn Muawiyah. It is Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, the brother of Muawiyah. Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan, from the household of the Sufyanids, this individual, he takes part in the conquest of Syria, and he is made governor of Damascus. He dies in the 18th year after Hijrah in a plague, And after that, you find that the second Khalifa, he appoints Muawiyah as the governor of Damascus. You know what this puts into place is that Banu Umayyah for 40 years had control of Damascus. And for 40 years, their propaganda, it reigns supreme in Sham, to the extent that the people of Sham, they never met Rasulullah, and they never met the people of Medina. The Islam they were introduced to was the Islam of the house of Abu Sufyan. And this is why when we look at the khutbah of Sayyida Zaynab, the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab and Imam Zaynul Abidin, it serves a twin function alongside the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. And what I mean by this is that when you look at the lands outside of Syria, the task of Imam al-Hussein outside of Syria was to awaken the Muslim Ummah. Outside of Syria, at one level, they witnessed the true Islam. And Imam al-Hussein, through his martyrdom and through his blood, he awakened the Muslim Ummah. But the task in Syria wasn't a task to awaken, because to awaken, it implies that information and truth was already there. So the task in Sham was to inform. And in this manner, what the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib couldn't do in Sham, and what the peace treaty of Imam al-Hassan couldn't do in Sham, and what the pure blood of Imam al-Hussein couldn't do in Sham, the khutbah of Sayyida Zaynab and Imam Zaynul Abidin accomplished that in Sham. That after giving that khutbah, you find individuals who were non-Muslims, they began to stand up and they began to question what was happening over there. And when we look at these two sermons, the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab and the sermon of Imam Zaynul Abidin, you find that they complete each other. Why? Because the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab condemns Yazid. In other words, the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab serves the function of tabarra and disassociation. And when you come to the sermon of Imam Zaynul Abidin, the sermon of Imam Zaynul Abidin is tawalla, it is fadail, it is the virtues of Ahlul Bayt. The Imam, he says, Ayyuhan nas, O mankind, u'tina sittan wa fuddilna bi sab'in. أعطينا العلم والحلم والسماحة والفصاحة والشجاعة والمحبة في قلوب المؤمنين. That when Allah gave us, He gave us 6 things. He gave us knowledge, and He gave us forbearance, and He gave us generosity and eloquence and bravery. And when Allah gave to us, He placed our love in the hearts of the believers. That this love of Ahlul Bayt, Imam Zaynul Abidin says Allah placed it in the hearts of the believers. But then after that he says there are 7 things by virtue of which we have been given preference. وَفُضِّلْنَا بِأَنَّ مِنَّا نَبِيُّ الْمُخْتَارِ وَمِنَّا الصِّدِّيقُ وَمِنَّا الطَّيَّارِ. That from us is a Rasulullah, the chosen. And from us is Ali ibn Abi Talib, the truthful. From us is Ja'far al-Tayyar. وَمِنَّا أَسَدُ اللَّهِ وَأَسَدُ رَسُولِهِ. From us is the lion of Allah and His messenger Hamza. وَمِنَّا سِبْتَ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ. And from us are the leaders of the youth of paradise. مَنْ أَرَفَنِي فَقَدْ أَرَفَنِي وَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفْنِي أَنْبَهْتُهُ بِحَسَبِي وَنَسَبِي. Those who know me, they know me. And those who don't know me, I will tell you what my lineage and my background is. And he says, أَنَا ابْنُ مَكَّةَ وَمِنَى. My background is that I am the son of Makkah and Mina. أَنَا ابْنُ زَمْزَمْ وَالصَّفَا. That I am the son of Zamzam and the mountain of Safa. أَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ حَمَلَ الرُّكْنَ بِأَطْرَافِ الرِّدَاءِ. I am the son of the one who carried the black stone in his cloak. أَنَا ابْنُ خَيْرِ مَنْ اعْتَزَرَ وَارْتَدَى. I am the son of the best of whom who would put on a cloak and clothing. أَنَا ابْنُ خَيْرِ مَنْ انْتَعَلَ وَاهْتَفَى. I am the best of the one who would put on sandals and slippers. In other words, these virtues other people put on clothing and other people put on sandals. But Imam Zaynul Abidin is showing in front of Yazid that when my grandfather did it, his method was the best. And when my grandfather did it, he was the best of creation. This level of fadail other people can have as well. But then he mentions certain fadail which only Rasulullah had. Anabnu man humila alal buraki fil hawa. That I am the son of the one who was carried on burak in the air, and he continues until he says, Anabnu man awhal jalil ilayhi ma'awha. That I am the son of the one whom Allah revealed what he revealed unto him. That over here, it doesn't mention what was revealed, but it says there was something that was revealed by Allah unto Rasulullah. So you find in this manner, Imam Zaynul Abidin, he gives the fadail of Rasulullah, and he gives the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But before Imam Zaynul Abidin can do this, you find the hearts had to be opened with the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab. So you find in this manner, the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab, it serves this purpose. But there is also one more historical purpose of the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab. There were many individuals who were favorable towards Banu Umayyah that would say that Ahlul Bayt never went to Sham. For example, Ibn Taymiyyah, he writes that Yazid, he told Ahlul Bayt after Karbala to go back to Medina, and the heads, they never went to Sham, they were buried in Karbala. One of the replies to this historic objection is the presence of the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab. The sermon of Sayyida Zaynab is mentioned even in a relatively early source. And that source is the book Balaghatun Nisa by Ibn Abi Tayfur. Ibn Abi Tayfur, he wrote a book where he compiled all of the sermons that were given by women which were of great eloquence. And this individual, he dies in the 280th year after Hijrah. He records the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab, and Sayyida Zaynab in her sermon, she mentions various historical facts. For example, she says to Yazid, قَدْ هَتَقْتَ سُتُورَهُنَّ. That, oh Yazid, how is it that your slaves and your women are covered in their veils, but the daughters of Rasulullah are taken as captives? You have taken apart their veils. And after that it says, وَأَبَيْتَ وُجُوهَهُنَّ, and you have exposed their faces. People, they ask the question, that how do we know about what happened on the day of Ashura? And really, there are four different ways that we know. The first way that we know is that the women of Ahlul Bayt told us about what happened on the day of Ashura. Sayyida Zaynab in front of Yazid, she stands, she mentions that their veils were taken. She mentions Imam al-Husayn's blood was spilled. So you find this is one source. A second source is the army of Yazid. Individuals like Hamid ibn Muslim, you hear the name of Hamid ibn Muslim in Masaib. Hamid ibn Muslim was a scribe. And there's one narration that says that when one of the daughters of Imam al-Husayn comes to Hamid ibn al-Muslim, she says, "O man, are you with us or against us?" He replies by saying, "Neither am I with you, nor am I against you." So you find there were individuals who were on the side of Yazid, whether they were enemies or whether they were state function scribes who would record the event. The third group of individuals who would record about the day of Ashura are the Imams of Ahlul Bayt also. People, they ask that how do we have narrations that state that the body of Imam al-Husayn had 100 wounds, for example, or 300 wounds, for example, that who was there to count the wounds on the body of Imam al-Husayn? The reason we know is because we are relying upon Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, and we are relying upon the ilm of imamat. So you find this is a third category. But the fourth category of those who would record about the day of Ashura were those individuals who were there on the day of Ashura, but they were not martyred on the side of Imam al-Husayn. There was one individual by the name of Muwakka ibn Tumama al-Asadi. Muwakka ibn Tumama al-Asadi, he fights on the day of Ashura, his arms are cut, and as he falls unconscious, the army of Umar bin Sa'ad decides that they will not kill him. This individual is one narrator. Hassan ibn al-Hasan al-Mutanna, he's wounded, but he is not killed, another narrator. Somebody like Aqaba ibn Sam'an, the slave of Rabab, the wife of Imam al-Hussein, he's an individual who would record, who was there but was not killed. So you find there were different groups who would record the event on the day of Ashura, and from amongst them are the women of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and one of those sources historically is the khutbah of Sayyida Zaynab. Now before I come to the different verses that Sayyida Zaynab mentions within the sermon, one thing that we need to understand as well on top of the historic is that what is the relevance of this sermon in our lives today? You know, 1400 years ago, a lady delivered a sermon. What is the impact and the value of that sermon 1400 years later? You know, the first point is that there are themes in this sermon that even though Sayyida Zaynab was addressing Yazid, it applies to every tyrant and it applies to every human being. For example, Sayyida Zaynab, one of the themes that she shows is that, oh Yazid, your power is limited in front of the power of Allah. And your command is limited in front of the command of Allah. This type of theme, which is found in the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab, is relevant in every time. On top of that, you find that there are points of aqaid and belief. There are points of history. There are points of even ethics and akhlaq, as you'll see. So this is the first relevant point. The second point of relevance about the sermon of Sayyida Zaynab is that it shows us what relationship did Sayyida Zaynab have with the Quran. You know, there's a narration of Imam Zaynul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Imam Zaynul Abidin, he says over there, لو مات من بين المشرق والمغرب لما استوحشت بعد أن يكون القرآن معي. That if everyone from the east to the west were to die, I would not feel any loneliness if I had the Quran with me. You know, when we hear these narrations, at one level, yes, it's a point of fadail. But whenever you hear the virtues of Ahlul Bayt, those virtues are a measuring stick for us. That yes, without a doubt, we'll never reach that level. As Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Nahjul Balagha, لا يقاس بآل محمد من هذه الأمة أحد, that don't compare Ali Muhammad to anyone in this ummah. But at the same time, you find that when we see Sayyida Zaynab's knowledge of the Quran and Imam Zaynul Abidin saying that he has this relationship with the Quran, it's a point of reflection that where are they and where are us? Because when you look at those individuals who held on to them, you find they elevated their status. When you look at somebody like Lady Fidda, it's stated that Lady Fidda, for a large portion of her life, either she only spoke from the Quran or she quoted greatly from the Quran. You know, there was a very famous ascetic in that time by the name of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. And Abdullah ibn Mubarak, as he's within the desert, he runs into Lady Fidda, but he doesn't recognize who she is. So he goes up and he says, "Oh lady, do you need help?" She replies by saying, "Qul salamun fasawfa ya'lamun." The verse of the Quran says salam and soon they shall know. That man says that I asked her a question, she replied with the verse of the Quran. He says after that, "Are you lost?" She said, وَمَن يَهْدِ اللَّهِ فَمَا لَهُ مِن مُضِلٍّ. The one whom Allah guides can never be lost. Now the man thinks, I asked her two questions, two answers from the Quran. Is this a human being or a jinn? She says, Ya Bani Adam, khudu zinatakum inda kulli masjid. That, oh Banu Adam, that I am the son of Adam, adorn yourself in every place of worship. The man says, where are you coming from? She says, Ulaika yunaduna min makanim ba'id. That they call from a far off place. I am coming from somewhere far. He says, where are you going? She says, Walillahi ala nasi hijjul bayt. That it is incumbent upon mankind to go to Hajj. I'm going to Hajj. He says, how long have you been lost for? He says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ. That he created the heavens and the earth and what is in between in 6 days. I've been lost for 6 days. The man says, 6 days? That are you hungry? She says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَاهُمْ جَسَدًا لَا يَأْكُلُونَ الطَّعَامِ. That we have not made them bodies who do not eat food. Obviously, I'm hungry. Then the man, after a while, he sees that he's upon his horse and she's walking. So the man says, catch up and come towards the horse. She says, لَا يُكَلِّفَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. That Allah does not task a soul more than what it can bear. In other words, I don't have the stamina to catch up with you. So the man, he stops the horse and he says, then come and sit with me upon this horse. At that moment, she says, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهَ لَفَسَدَتَا. That if there were any gods besides Allah, this would be corruption. In other words, you are my non-mahram. If we sit on the same horse, this is fasad and corruption. After that, the man says, okay, I will get off the horse and you will ride. The moment she gets on the horse, she says, Subhanalladhi sakhara lana hada wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin. That praise belongs to Allah who made this subservient. Now they're going. She's on the horse, he's walking. In the distance, they see 4 young men who begin to walk towards them. So you find that he says that, do you know these young men? She says 4 ayat of the Quran. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا الرَّسُولُ. Muhammad is only a messenger. Ya Yahya khudil kitab biquwa. That, oh Yahya, hold on to the book with strength. Ya Dawood inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. That Dawood, we are making you a caliph upon this earth. Ya Musa inni an Allah. That, oh Musa, I am Allah. The man, he says, that I understood from this, that their names are Dawood, Yahya, Muhammad, and Musa. So I said, oh lady, who are they? She says, Al-malu wal-banun zinatul hayat ad-dunya. That your wealth and your children are the adornments of this world. He says, I understood, these are our children. Now the children, they come to Lady Fidda. And when they come to Lady Fidda, she looks at them and she says, Ista'jirhu. Inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyu al-amin. That give him a wage. Because the best whom you can give a wage is honest and strong. The verse which the daughter of Shu'aib recited in regards to Musa. So the children, they give the man money. After that, she says, Man dalladhi yuqridu Allah qardan hasana fayudaifahu lahu adafan katira. Whoever gives Allah alone, Allah increases it for him. In other words, give him more money. The man, after this entire dialogue, he goes to those children and he says to them that, who is this lady? That the entire time she spoke nothing but the book of Allah. And at that point they reply by saying, that is our mother Fidda, the servant of Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. If Fidda, through the presence of Sayyida Zaynab, can reach such a status of understanding the Quran, then what understanding must Sayyida Zaynab herself have? And that's why when Sayyida Zaynab, she begins her sermon, she says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, that all praise belongs to Allah, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi ajma'een, and may his salutations be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his entire progeny. Sadaqallahu haytu yaqul, and Allah was truthful when he said. And then after that, she quotes Surah Ar-Rum, chapter 30, verse 10. And over there, the ayat that says, ثُمَّ كَانَ عَاقِبَةَ الَّذِينَ أَسَاءُوا السُّوءَ أَنْ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَكَانُوا بِهَا يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. The verse, it says that the end of those who did evil was evil, because they denied the signs of Allah and mocked them. And there's another possibility which Allama Tabatabai mentions, even though he says that it is the lesser of the 2 possibilities, but it is also possible that this verse, it means that evil, which was the end of those who did wrong, was at the very end, they began to mock the signs of Allah and they began to ridicule the signs of Allah. You know, over here, when Sayyida Zaynab, she gives this verse of the Quran in front of Yazid, there's a very fine ethical point that she's bringing up in front of Yazid. And that point is in regard to human behavior. You know, Islamic ethics is very different from our understanding of ethics. You know, in today's world, to be ethical means to do something good. Now, without a doubt, good actions are emphasized in Islamic ethics. But what is core are the habits that you build. That's why in akhlaq, we have a term called malaka. And what malaka means is that a habit becomes so second nature to you that you do it time and time again without hesitation. In other words, the goal is not to do an act of generosity, but the goal is to be generous, so generosity comes time and time again. You see, Sayyida Zaynab on one side, when an individual, something becomes second nature, it can be a positive direction. It can be a point of fadail. But at the second level, it can be a point of evil as well. You know, for example, in today's world, just by means of a practical statement, there's many who will come up and they'll say that what is the harm in smoking marijuana? But at the same time, if you look at those individuals who go to harder drugs after that, how many of them go to harder drugs without smoking marijuana first? You find when an individual, he goes down a path which isn't positive, it happens gradually. That at one level, yes, they make a mistake. When that mistake happens, no one is perfect. But you find the mindset towards that mistake is very powerful. You know, there's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, where the Prophet says, Al-kafir la yara danbahu كأنه تحت صخرة يخاف أن تقع عليه. That a believer, he views sin as if he is underneath a stone which is about to fall upon him. That the mindset of a believer is that he takes it as something serious. Even though he may not achieve that state, the mindset is powerful. You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen says in a separate narration, وَلَا تَنْظُرْ إِلَى صِغَرِ الذَّنْبِ. Do not look at the smallness of the sin. وَلَكِنْ انظُرْ إِلَى مَنْ أَسَيْتَ. But rather look at whom you are disobeying. So you find over there, that is one level of an individual. But then a disbeliever, the narration of Rasulullah says, يَرَى ذَنْبَهُ كَأَنَّهُ ذُبَابٌ مَرَّ عَلَى أَنْفِهِ. That a disbeliever, when he looks at sin, he views it as if it is a fly that comes on his nose and passes just like that. So you find an individual, when they do something once or twice, you find there is hope, you can come back. But when something becomes a habit time and time again, you find those habits are building upon you. You know, I remember one writer, he gave an example, and this example was in regards to building habits. He says that if there's a plane which is flying from Los Angeles to New York, if that plane changes its trajectory just by 3 degrees, in 3 degrees, it'll end up in Washington, D.C. and not New York. In other words, habits, when they compound upon each other, you find that they're building in a direction. When Sayyida Zaynab uses this verse in front of Yazid, she is saying that, oh Yazid, look at what your end has become. That Imam al-Hussein said, Yazid sharibul qamar. That Yazid is an individual who would drink intoxicants. But Yazid over time became such an individual that he says those lines, لَعِبَتْ هَاشِمْ بِالْمُلْكِ فَلَا خَبَرٌ جَاءَ وَلَا وَحْيٌ نَزَلَ. That Banu Hashim played with the kingdom, and there was no revelation, nor was there any news from heaven. When Sayyida Zaynab recites this verse of the Quran, that the end of those who do evil is evil, for they used to mock and deny the signs of Allah, this ayat is the best representation of the condition of Yazid. She is saying, oh Yazid, your state is this state that you were saying that no revelation came, that you were taking your stick and you were hitting the teeth of Abu Abdullah. So you find this is the first ayat. Then after that, Sayyida Zaynab says, Adananta ya Yazid. حيث أخذت علينا أقطار الأرض وآفاق السماء فأصبحنا نساق كما تساق الإماء. She says, "O Yazid, do you think by closing the sky over us and by making us go from these different lands as servants, as slaves, anna bi'na ala Allahi hawana, that Allah has disgraced us, wa bika alayhi karama, that Allah has given you honor and Allah has disgraced us? Fashamakhta bi anfika, and you wave your nose in arrogance towards us, and you look at us in pride and happiness. It's as if your world is flocking towards you and you have taken our kingdom. فَمَحْلًا مَحْلًا. Wait, O Yazid. أَنَسَيْتَ قَوْلَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Have you forgotten the verse of the Quran? And then after that, she quotes the second ayat of the Quran within the sermon. You know, the second ayat of the Quran that she quotes is Surat Al Imran, chapter 3, verse 178. Within that verse, Sayyida Zaynab says, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. She says that do not the disbelievers suppose that Allah granting them respite, in other words, Allah prolonging their lives, is not for their betterment, but rather it is so their sins are increased and at the end they'll have an embarrassing punishment. You know, Sayyida Zaynab, she gives a very fine point in front of Yazid. She says, "O Yazid, the barometer of Allah's blessings upon you and the barometer of truth is not having the upper hand. There are many individuals from the worldly perspective, yes, they have a lot, but the perspective of truth is something else. It is not necessary that you are a good individual just because you are in power and we are in this position over here." So she reminds Yazid of this reality. And she says, "O Yazid, at the end, your punishment will be a punishment of embarrassment." So you find this ayat over here is the second ayat which Sayyida Zaynab quotes within her sermon. After that, she continues the sermon. She says, "Amin al-adli ibn tulaqa." "O the son of that man, of a man who was freed by my grandfather." You know, this word talik is that there were a group of individuals that after the conquest of Makkah, they became Muslim. That when they saw that Islam had the upper hand, they said, now we will become Muslim. But when Sayyida Zaynab, she looks at Yazid and she says, "Yabna tulaqa," "O son of a freed man." In other words, your grandfather is Abu Sufyan. And my grandfather and my father are whom? My father is the one where the Quran says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ, that there were those who were the first to come to Islam. And those who were the first to come to Islam, those are those individuals who are closest towards Allah. So she says, أَمِنَ الْأَدْلِ يَبْنَ الطُّلَقَى, that is it just, O son of a freed man, تَخْدِيرُكَ إِمَاءَكَ وَنِسَاءَكَ, that you put your slaves and your women behind veils. وَسَوْكُكَ بَنَاتِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ السَّبَايَا. Your women are behind veils, but the daughters of Rasulullah are being taken from town to town as captives. قَدْ حَتَكْتَ سُتُورَهُنَّ, and you took apart their veils. وَأَبْدَيْتَ وُجُوهَهُنَّ, and you unveiled their faces. And then after that it says, وَتَحْدُ بِهِنَّ الْأَعْدَاءَ مِنْ بَلَدٍ إِلَى بَلَدٍ, that they were taken by enemies from city to city. You know, the historians, they mention that when Ahlul Bayt were taken from Kufa to Sham, Ibn Ziyad, he wanted to make an example out of the Ahlul Bayt of Rasulullah. And that at 36 halting stations or more, they were taken over there. Sayyida Zaynab, she describes the position that they were in at those halting stations. She says, يَسْتَشْرِفُهُنَّ أَهْلُ الْمَنَازِلِ وَالْمَنَاهِلِ. The people at these halting stations, they would look at us. وَيَتَصَفَّهُ وُجُوهُنَّ الْبَعِيدِ وَالْقَرِيبِ. Anyone who was standing far and anyone who was standing close would look at us, the daughters of Rasulullah. وَالدَّنِيُّ وَالشَّرِيفُ. And it didn't matter whether he was noble or ignoble. لَيْسَ مَعَهُنَّ مِنَ رِجَالِهِنَّ وَلِيٌّ. And there was no man from their family to take care of them. وَلَا مِنْ حُمَاتِهِنَّ حَمِيٌّ. And there was no defender to take care of them. And then she says, وَكَيْفَ تُرْتَجَى مُرَاقَبَةُ مَنْ لَفَدَ فَوْهُ أَكْبَادَ الْأَسْكِيَاءِ. And O Yazid, what can I expect from a man who is the son of the one who chewed the liver of the noble? وَنَّبَتَ لَحْمُهُ بِالدِّمَاءِ الشُّهَدَاءِ. And when his flesh, it grew, his flesh grew with the blood of the shuhada and the martyrs. And then after that, she begins to speak to Yazid, and she says in various lines that, O Yazid, you have brought back the feuds of tribalism. You have spilt the blood of Banu Hashim. You have spilt the blood of Hussein, the one who was the nujum, the stars of Allah upon this earth. And as she's continuing, she reaches the third ayat within the sermon. You know, the third ayat within the sermon, she states in the context that, O Yazid, the tide will turn against you. And a day will come when Rasulullah, he blames you. And Jibreel will be the helper of Rasulullah. She recites chapter 3, verse 169, Surah Ali Imran. And she says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. That, O Yazid, don't think that those who are killed in the way of Allah are dead, but rather they are alive. They are receiving sustenance from Allah. That, O Yazid, do not suppose that those martyrs that you have killed, they have left this world. But rather their impact upon this world is much more than your impact. You know, these ayat, initially they were in regards to the shuhada of Badr and more specifically Uhud. And Yazid, in front of Sayyida Zaynab, he said, قَدْ قَتَلْنَا قِرَمًا مِنْ سَادَاتِكُمْ. That we have killed the best of your leaders, and today we have taken revenge for Badr. Sayyida Zaynab, she turns back towards Yazid, and she uses an ayat of the Quran which speaks about those shuhada, which applies to Imam al-Hussein as well, and she replies with this verse as the third ayat of the Quran. Then she continues, and as she's continuing the sermon, the fourth ayat of the Quran that she quotes, it says, وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِدَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. That, O Yazid, your Lord will never oppress his servants. In other words, what is happening to us is not because Allah has oppressed us, but rather what is happening to us is because of your actions, O Yazid. And O Yazid, because they're of your own actions, later in the sermon, the fifth ayat of the Quran she quotes is chapter 11, verse 18, where she says, Ala la'natullah alal dalimin. That may the curse of Allah be upon those who are oppressors. You know, when Sayyida Zaynab, she says this line in front of Yazid, she follows it up with another line. And she says, Ya Yazid kid kaidak, was'a sa'yak. That plot your plots and try your best, wa nasib johdak, and gather your helpers, la tamhu dhikrana. You will never be able to erase our remembrance, O Yazid. That, O Yazid, there is a difference between our remembrance and your remembrance. When we are remembered, people, they send salawat upon us. But when you are remembered, they send la'na after your name is taken. You know, there was a famous non-Shia scholar by the name of Sa'aduddin al-Taftazani. They said, O Taftazani, that should we send la'na upon Yazid or should we not send la'na upon Yazid? Because it is possible that he was a believer. You know, Taftazani, he replies by saying, لا نشك في يزيد ولعنه. That there is no doubt about Yazid and sending la'na upon him. بل نشك في إيمانه ونتيقن كفره. But rather, if there is any doubt, that doubt is about the belief of this individual, but rather we are certain that he was a disbeliever. So you find in this manner, Sayyida Zaynab in front of Yazid, she says, Ala la'natullah ala dhalimeen. And then the final ayat of the Quran that Sayyida Zaynab quotes within this sermon is that at the end she goes to the praise of Allah and she quotes chapter 3, verse 173, and she says, وَحَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. And upon Allah we rely, and He is the best of those who are caretakers. You know, in this manner, Sayyida Zaynab, she delivers her sermon. After that, Imam Zaynul Abidin, he delivers his sermon. When one delivers a sermon or a khutbah, you find that to be in a state of discomfort as you're delivering a sermon, it has impact upon you. That Sayyida Zaynab, when she says these words, she goes upon a journey before saying these words. She has the pain of the martyrdom of her brother. She has the pain of the martyrdom of her family. You know in which way was Ahlul Bayt taken to Sham before the sermon? Imam Muhammad al-Baqir in a narration, he says that when we were taken from Kufa to Sham, there were not any saddles which were put upon the camels. And surrounding us were the heads of the martyrs. And whenever any of our women would cry, they would take a spear and they would begin to poke those women. You know, in this manner, Ahlul Bayt, they reached the gate of Damascus. The gate of Damascus at that time was called Babu Tawma. It was named after Thomas, one of the disciples of Jesus, because Syria was a Christian land. But later it would be named as Babu Sa'a. You know, the narrations, they differ. How long did Ahlul Bayt stand at Babu Sa'a? Some said 2 hours, some said several hours. But there's one narration that states that when Ahlul Bayt, they reached the door of Damascus, Shimar, or one of the other soldiers, he takes the head of Imam al-Hussein and he hangs the head of Imam al-Hussein on the door of Damascus. When Kulthum, she sees the head of her brother, she says, Wa ya Jadda ya Rasulallah, that, oh my grandfather, hada ra'asu habibik al-Hussein maslubun, that, oh my grandfather, this is the head of Hussein which is hanging here, my grandfather. You know, they decorated the marketplace and they decorated the entrance to the city. Then that moment it came where Ahlul Bayt, they begin to enter Damascus. You know, again, Imam al-Baqir, he describes how they entered Damascus. He says that when we entered that marketplace, all around people would yell that they are bughat, they are rebels. People would throw rocks upon us, Ahlul Bayt. And from the tops of their houses, whenever we would go past a house, they would pour boiling water upon us. He says that at one point, an individual, they poured boiling water on my father, Imam Zaynul Abidin. When they poured that water, it stated that the turban of Imam Zaynul Abidin, it catches on fire. You know, as Imam Zaynul Abidin was within the court of Sham, within the marketplace of Sham, it stated that there was a companion of Rasulullah by the name of Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi. Sahl ibn Sa'd, he goes to Imam Zaynul Abidin and he says, oh man, I was a companion of your grandfather. Imam Zaynul Abidin says, oh Sahl, then go and bring me a piece of cloth. Sally says that I didn't understand that why does this man want a piece of cloth? When I brought him that cloth, you know what Imam Zaynul Abidin he does? He takes that cloth and he places it within that chain upon his neck, and he looks at Sal and he says, "Oh Sal, from Karbala to Kufa, Kufa to Sham, this metal has been burning my neck." You know, after that moment it comes when Ahlul Bayt, they enter the court of Yazid. You know, before Sayyida Zaynab gave her sermon, it stated that the head of Imam al-Hussein was placed in front of Yazid. And you know what Yazidi begins to do? Yazidi begins to take a stick and he begins to hit the teeth of Aba Abdullah. After that, the women of Ahlul Bayt, they are presented in front of Yazid. You know, one narration it says that one individual, he looks to the daughter of Imam al-Hussein and he says that I want to take this girl as my personal servant. At that point, that girl, she goes to Sayyida Zaynab. That man, he moves, he goes to attack Sayyida Zaynab. But at that moment, Fidda, she stands and she says, "Oh man, you are from the same area as me. Don't strike this woman." After that, Fidda, she begins to cry. And she says, "What day has come on the household of Rasulullah that they don't respect the relationship of these women to Rasulullah, but they respect Fidda from being from a certain town." You know, as they're within that courtyard, one of the great masayib of that courtyard is that there was a wife of Yazid by the name of Hind. And it's stated that this Hind used to work in the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra. Hind, when she comes and she looks at the women of Ahlul Bayt, she says, "Min ayyi biladin antum," which city are you from? Sayyida Zaynab, she says, "Nahnu min bilad al-Madina," that we are from the city of Medina. The moment Sayyida Zaynab says Medina, it's stated Hind, she comes, she sits on the ground, and she says, "Welcome to the people of Medina. I used to work in a house in Medina." Sayyida Zaynab says, "Which house did you work in?" She says, "I was a servant in the house of Ali and Fatima." After that, Sayyida Zaynab says, "Oh lady, do you know anyone in the house of Ali and Fatima?" She says that I know Hussein, I know Zaynab. Sayyida Zaynab says, "Oh Hind, over there is the head of Hussein, and oh Hind, I am Zaynab." That what did Karbala do to Sayyida Zaynab? That they didn't recognize Zaynab after Karbala. Ala la'natullah lil qawm al-zalimin. سيعلم الذين ظلموا ويا منقلب ينقلبون. Ya Allah, we pray through the right of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they're sick and ailing, cure them. Ya Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Grant us the ziyarah of the Arba'een of Imam al-Hussein. Grant us the shafa'ah and the intercession of Imam al-Hussein. We pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the 12th of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, Matam Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں میں اپنے بھائی کا چہلم منانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں میں اپنے بھائی کا چہلم منانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں کسی نے قید میں رونے نہیں دیا مجھ کو کسی نے قید میں رونے نہیں ہائے کسی نے قید میں رونے نہیں دیا مجھ کو سو آج فرش عزا میں بچھانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو وہ دشت جیس پہ کہ شبیر تیرا خون بہا وہ دشت جیس پہ کہ شبیر تیرا خون ہائے وہ دشت جیس پہ کہ شبیر تیرا خون بہا اسے میں عرش ملا بنانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں بہانے آئی ہوں غم حسین میں آنسو وہ جس کی لاش قرآن میں کفن بھی مل نہ سکا وہ جس کی لاش قرآن میں ہے وہ جس کی لاش قرآن میں کفن بھی مل نہ سکا میں اس غریب کی تربت بنانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین جو زخم کھائے تھے تم نے وہ زخم گہرے تھے، جو زخم کھائے تھے تم نے وہ زخم ہے، جو زخم کھائے تھے تم نے وہ زخم گہرے تھے، جو زخم کھائے ہیں میں نے دکھانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو وہ جس کی یاد میں دن رات جو تڑپتی تھی، وہ جس کی یاد میں دن رات جو تڑپ ہے، وہ جس کی یاد میں دن رات جو تڑپتی تھی، میں اس یتیم کا نوحہ سنانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں حسین تیرا لہو رائے گا نہیں ہوگا، حسین تیرا لہو رائے گا نہیں ہے، حسین تیرا لہو رائے گا نہیں ہوگا، یہ وعدہ میں نے کیا تھا نبھانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو میں اپنے بھائی کا چہلم منانے آئی ہوں، غم حسین میں آنسو بہانے آئی ہوں۔
اب نہ یہاں سے گھر جائے گی، لوٹ کے یہ ماں جائی، زینب آ گئی بھائی، لو زندان شام سے چھٹ کر، زینب آ گئی بھائی، زینب آ گئی بھائی، لو زندان شام سے بعد تیرے ایسا لوٹا گھر، سر پہ نہ چھوڑی ایک کے چادر، کھینچ لیا بیمار کا بستر، دیتی رہی میں دعائی، تارے کے رستے انجانے، دشمن ہر سو نیزہ تانے، کرب و بلا کے بن میں نہ جانے کیسی شام تھی آئی، حسرت تو تھی جانے خواہر دیتے اجازت گر یہ ستمگر میت پر کچھ دیر ٹھہر کر رو لیتی ماں جائی سر کھولے بے مکنو چادر آدھا لے گئے ہم کو در در کیا بولوں ایک ایک قدم پر کس کس کی یاد آئی گھوڑے جب بیمار پہ برسے روتے تھے ہم سب ہنستے تھے حکم تیرا تھا ہم بے بس تھے رو لیتی ماں جائی اور ہائے میرا بیمار بھتیجا پل پل خون کے آنسو رویا پل پل خون کے آنسو رویا کیا کرتی مجبور تھی بھیا کچھ نہ بہن کر پائی زینب آ گئی بھائی اب نہ یہاں سے گھر جائے گی لوٹ کے یہ ماں جائی زینب آ گئی بھائی او سید سید سید
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس السلام عليك أنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض توز روحي وجسمي لك الفداء السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك إمام هذا عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأبانك السلام عليكم